Player retention in the age of free-to-play. Challenges and opportunities.
Good afternoon. My name is Oliver de Bono. I'm the CEO of Quantum Gaming, and we're here to talk about player retention and free-to-plays. It's a really interesting subject, and actually it resonates quite a lot with what Clinton was just talking about earlier, about creating your brand and which is your target market, what players are you going after. And this is something I really wanted to touch on because as a platform provider, we also have a free-to-play product. And free-to-play is really a term that gets thrown around quite a lot. There's a lot of free-to-play out there. And a lot of what we've seen in the market today is really acquisition. So using free-to-play and gamification really for retention, I think, is the way businesses are really progressing. Yesterday, there was a fantastic speech by SoftBet CEO about gamification, how it's kind of revolutionizing the player's experience in casinos. So I want to kick off with that a little bit. I want to touch on what casinos are doing today, what sportsbooks are doing today in free-to-play. So I'd like to just switch over to SoftBet because we were just speaking a second ago. I know you guys are doing a lot in the field. So what can you tell us today about gamification, about free-to-play, what you're using to keep players engaged in your product?
So, hello? Yes, hi. So, as it was mentioned, I think on the first day, free-to-play is crucial, but I think that gamification is also very important in our market. And let's face it, if we take the whole gambling industry in the past 10 years, we are lacking of innovation, I think, in our industry. And I think that SoftBet understood and take that position and to really be innovative. And with the gamification, when we combine social and casino and sportsbook in the future, then we really understand and we see improvement on retention, on player value. And it brings a lot of growth, I would say, from an operator point of view, but also from a B2B point of view as well.
Agreed. It does bring growth, but when we actually go into the details, and myself and Richard, we were also talking about this before, a lot of what free-to-play exists today has primarily been acquisition. To give a few examples for the audience, you have a lot of these kind of free-to-play fantasy-style sports games. I think the biggest example of this was the likes of DraftKings going from pretty much fantasy sports to one of the largest operators, in the US market. But what actually exists today? So we create a product which is pretty much kind of like raffle football games. So we offer the players an opportunity to place, their picks, their predictions. They go into a raffle, and based on their results, they get X amounts of tickets. This is an example we use for acquisition. But using it for retention, what are we offering customers today? Richard, just to shift over to you a little bit, what do you see is the future in retaining customers with these games? Because is it actually profitable to offer current players retention-based free-to-play, or is it really an acquisition tool?
Well, I think everybody understands or has to understand that players or customers will go to a betting site to win money, first and foremost. And to win money, a player has to lose money in order for the business to be profitable and successful for everybody involved. So there has to be a balance there. Now, in the UK, we've seen a number of strategies, and I think you have to look at every market individually because every market's got their own specific requirements. They've got their own specific gambling legislation that allows for it or doesn't allow for it. So you have to take each market as in its own entirety. So UK, for example, one of the most successful products is called Super 6, which is done by Sky Bet. I know LiveScore have just developed a version of it. So they understand how these products can add a lot of value. LiveScore is a bit of a nuance in that they've already got an active customer base, and all they have to do is convert their active player base into betting customers. And even if they create 1%, it's still a huge volume for them. If we look at Nigeria, for example, when you look at free-to-play there, they more look at what bonuses that they get on accumulator bets on football. One thing, again, in the UK, which I've recently seen tried in Mexico, is that there's a number of raffle sites out there with prizes. And some of these prizes can be free to enter raffles. And obviously, the bigger the prize, you will have to pay money. But the acquisition cost of those players is £4, which is significantly less to those that you're paying for a casino or a sportsbook player. So there is opportunities out there, but it's all about creating the balance in the product and understanding what your returns are going to be against your acquisition costs.
100%, but then we're going around in this circle, and this is what I was trying to say before, is ultimately a lot of free-to-play is still acquisition-based. You know, what can you offer to customers today? Because we use it primarily for acquisition as well, and you know, if you're talking about £4, you know, CPA, I mean, that's a really good CPA. If you're an operator today and you're trying to, you know, work with affiliates, I mean, your average affiliate cost is going to run you in a tier 1 market, Japan, Canada, €150 plus 40% on the rev share. So the comparison is, or the answer, the strange thing is, why aren't more brands using it? You know, I want to switch gears and shift over a little bit to Odin, because you guys are making waves in the esports market. And how are you finding it? Because what we've seen a lot, especially when it comes to esports and acquisition, it's still primarily being used as an acquisition point for sports betting. Are you seeing a similar trend, or you want to keep your players purely focused on esports, and how are you attracting them?
Well, first of all, as you started, so free-to-play is like, there are so many free-to-plays, right? So there are like games free-to-plays, casino free-to-plays, like free bets were even mentioned, and this can also be considered as free-to-play. So answering your question, like free-to-play is basically a requirement for esports, because all the esports titles are free-to-play except maybe Rainbow Six, and it's like not the most popular one. So the industry understands that, yeah, it's mainly acquisition, right? So if you place some hurdle for the players, right, that they need to pay for the game, for example, this already, like, you suffer a lot in terms of the audience. So for esports, this is critical to have. And again, going back to your question, I'm not sure that this is an acquisition for sports betting, because esports betting is already like huge, and obviously there is some overlap that some bettors they're like interested in both like Counter-Strike and football, but I would say that this is a different audience. And because this is a different audience, and many of them actually they don't know about betting at all, right? So if you are looking at like average, I don't know, football, tennis fan, like 95% of them, maybe more, right? 95% have placed a single bet in their life, I guess, and 99% they know about betting. So with esports, you really need to promote the product to actually acquire those esports fans to become sport like bettors. And for this one, yeah, definitely, like we see from our clients that for them, some sort of like free bets, some free-to-play options on their website, it works really well.
So that's interesting, because we're actually having a panel about this subject after this one. I've always felt that, you know, the esports market is less about gambling and it's more about competition. You know, the concept of free-to-play in gaming, which really made companies like Riot, you know, millions, was the idea that you can come and play the game for free, and then you had all these microtransactions, and Riot did a very, very good job in continually adding new characters and items to the game. So, you know, as a player myself, I remember spending, you know, 50 to 100 euros in a 3-month period. I mean, if you look at that from a point of no risk, because it's not gambling at the end of the day. I mean, this is a one-time transactions. There is no withdrawal. So, you know, whatever happens, those items are staying in the product. But switching back to it, I mean, free-to-play itself, there are so many examples. We're seeing Africa is really, really big on it. Raffles are really, really big on it. But what are casinos doing today for the actual live players? I mean, there's a lot of drop-and-win competitions you have with game providers. You know, Pragmatic do a great job with that. But what does the next, you know, 1 year, 2 years hold for casino brands that are really trying to revolutionize? So I'd love to switch over to you on that one, you know, back to SoftBet, because I know you guys are doing a lot in this market.
Yes, definitely. So I think that, you know, there are 2 points on the free-to-play. First of all, I think that the whole industry right now focused only on free-to-play related to the acquisition. Especially in the US market, we see that, you know, to put a footprint in those markets, you need to be there before they are going to regulation. So they acquire the customers, then they transfer them as soon as they will go live with the license. But I think that what we are missing, and what I think we encourage, and we start, and we are the pioneers there, is that we use actually the gamification and the free-to-play inside the real money gambling, and not the opposite. So we try to combine, I would say, real money with social and free-to-play at the same time, and we see actually very good results on retention, on players' lifetime value. The customers are coming back, and we have something on the side to offer to the customers more than the gambling website. So they can only gamble on the casino, on the sportsbook if they want to, But after, they can also play on those gamification and free-to-play games, and they come back. And we see that it's very successful so far, and it's something actually new in the industry. So I think that if you ask me in 1 year, 2 years, I think that it's very easy to say. I think that the rest of the industry will at least try to follow. And from a sportsbook perspective, they will do the same. And we will try to do the same, as it was mentioned in the CEO speech on the first day. This is why we are here. This is what we strive for, to try to do something different for the players in the end of the day from a user experience. And we really hope that it will also be successful on the sports side as well.
So you mentioned something really interesting earlier, because this was something, I don't know if anyone remembers, when that was really, really big in Canada. A lot of free-to-play sites went up in Canada, so you could actually get Google ads. This was a very interesting methodology that a lot of brands used, and then they would CRM those players into the actual casinos. Obviously, there's a lot you can do with free-to-play. It's not just about how innovative your product is, it's how you use it. So one of the best moves, I don't know if many people in the audience know this, what a lot of companies were doing at the time was creating non-real money casinos so players could sign up. Now, what was the incredible thing about this is that you can actually advertise these casinos now because there's no real money transactions. So this was a massive loophole in the market, which really helped casinos bring on a player base, and then you would then offer those players real money deposit bonuses and so on. But there is a lot to it. I mean, the word free to play, it's very, very vague because you have so much you can offer players. And the markets are changing. I see a lot of operators, and I want to go back to you on this one, Richard, because Africa is a really interesting market, and a lot of business out there is based on free to play. It's huge volume, low transactions. I mean, apart from raffles, you've got free to play lotteries as well. What else is coming out in the African market that's kind of bringing on these huge volumes of players?
Well, in Africa specifically, casino play is only just now becoming part of day-to-day activity for the bettors or for the customers. Predominantly, they're interested in football betting only, and at accumulator level. But now I think crash games specifically have made a big difference to the market. They're quite simple for people to understand. The concept is easy for them to understand. Whereas with slots, I think, the players aren't used to them. They need to be educated. And certainly the free play aspect of those and the bonuses are so complicated that, as a regular player myself, I'm not a casino player, more sports bet, but casino bonusing is something that, is a myriad. And every operator or every supplier has its own terms, its own conditions. And having an aggregation platform myself, trying to add all of these specific suppliers in with all their different opportunities for the players is so complex. So, simplification, I think, is something that should be understood. Making sure a player, when they first don't come in, understand what's real money, what's not real money, how they obtain real money from their free play money, and at what stage that stops. Because I think, especially when you're educating new markets, you have to make it simple. It's the only way to educate them and bring them in, or else they will just stick to what they knew. They'll stick to what's simple for them, and you'll lose the players if they feel as though they're not getting the value or the opportunities that they want from their supplier.
See, that's really interesting, because I know the idea is keep it simple for the player, but the amount of work that goes into keeping it simple, every market has a different style, a different approach. Africa is a big up-and-coming geo. Obviously, as a continent, there's so much diversity. Even certain parts of Africa, the games change completely. So we're seeing a trend in these markets, the same in Latin America. I think Europe, Asia, North America, a lot more mature. And then the interesting thing is I want to switch back a little bit to esports, because there's a lot of good products coming out into the market. A lot of companies have tried to take the esports route, and I think you said it earlier, it's a different product. And I think those brands that have kind of used the video gaming world or the video gaming free-to-play to transition them into sports bettors have failed. It's a different market. Clinton mentioned it before, which I thought was really interesting. Go for a new market. Don't try and poach everyone else's players. But on the esports front, what trends are we seeing? What are the new games? Do you think it's going to be a continuous evolution of MOBAs? Where is it that the players are interested today? Because you've got games like LoL that continue to reign, but what else is coming out?
To be honest, I think it's really, really hard to actually enter this market, especially competitive PC gaming. This is almost impossible. So you look at all the biggest titles, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Dota 2. They're very old games, and there are a lot of attempts. Like Valorant is doing quite well in specific regions. But yeah, as you said, I think there is much more potential, and this is where we see the industry targets itself. It's not a direct competition, but this is mobile gaming, right? And mobile competitive gaming, esports. So it's really huge in some countries, and again, all of that is free to play. So mobile is, I would say, it's the entry point there to become competitive is much less. And just I have an interesting comment regarding free to play, and again, like what you said, that you really need to target maybe different markets. Just yesterday, I had a dinner with friends, and one of them, he's not in gambling industry, he was before, but now he's more like in mobile games development. And I didn't know, there are casual games, and there inside casual games you have some casino product, but it's not even real gambling. So you can deposit real money, but it's not possible to withdraw it at all. So you it's only one way, and this is huge. So people are spending lots of money. There are he said, there's an example of some 60 years old family, husband and wife. And they see the statistics. Each day they play several hours, and they spend a lot of money on this. So they play the casual game, and just inside the game there's some option to gamble, and this is also successful, right? And this is not just acquisition, right? So this is not an acquisition for casinos. This is a real free-to-play product to earn the money directly.
But would you say it's actually gambling if there's no withdrawal option?
It's not actual gambling, and that's why it's even allowed in the store. So I think it's even allowed in Google Store, in App Store. So this is an interesting product, but it is also based on the free-to-play casual game in the first place, and then you can monetize this as well. So this is an interesting idea, and this is successful.
So it's funny you're speaking about this. So Quantum as a brand, we've actually come out with something a little bit similar. We've decided to connect mobile game engines into our platform to see if it actually works. It did work. And then what we found in the market is you can actually go and take on a lot of different engines. One of the biggest companies that actually provide you with free gambling engines today is Unity. You can actually take the slots engine, and then it will be a one-way transaction to simply gamify your product. So you can have a mobile game and then integrate only a casual slot game, which is really, really interesting. So, I mean, there's a lot you can do, and there's, a major divide between free-to-play on esports and free-to-play on gambling. But, being a gambling conference, I want to switch back, a little bit over here, because what we're seeing a lot of is, a lot of different content houses are coming up with these new concepts. I think maybe in the last couple of years, Pragmatics, drops was quite a big one. What other suggestions? What else are you guys seeing? And again, back to SoftBet, because I know you guys are a leader in this market. I would love to know what else is coming out. Is it in content, or are you now pushing it? Obviously, from your side, you want to keep it on the platform front. But what kind of offers are you making to these players? Is it, kind of casual raffles, similar to drop-in wins? What do you see as the next big thing? And how does that change by geo?
So, as I mentioned, we do a lot of promotion, a lot of different raffles, different tournaments, drops to the players, and the latest innovative things that we developed is actually the City Builder, as I mentioned, which is something that works from a retention point of view and that brings the social into the real gambling together, as I mentioned. And the next big thing that I see is coming next is from a sportsbook perspective, to try to be able to combine, I would say, the real gambling from a sportsbook and to bring also those casual games and be able to give the ability to the player to enjoy much more when they are betting today. So let's face it, from my perspective, when I bet, I watch a game, I like to be with friends, and it's quite boring when you bet. I mean, it gives the adrenaline when you watch the game and you want to see your bet win or lose or to cash out, and that's bringing up. But when you see the UX and the front end and the design of those websites today, nothing has changed in the past 10 years. They are all the same. 20 years. 20 years. It's the same. So I think that the next step for us and for the rest of the industry is to try to innovate there and to bring something new to the new generation that are playing casual game, that are playing free-to-play, and to bring them that same adrenaline from a player perspective and product perspective. And it's not an easy task. It's very difficult. But we are ready to take this task, and we'll do it. We'll try at least to do it.
It's interesting you say this because, again, we have kind of opposing factors over here. You know, Richard, I agree with you. We have to keep it simple, but at the same time, you need to innovate. You know, it's not hard to, so it's not easy to come up with a good free-to-play product. Whether you're, you know, targeting esports today, which in a huge competitive market, you know, going against the likes of Riot is very, very tough. There's a lot of new brands coming out there. I don't know if anyone's heard of like Appella Games. They're doing a good job with Rise of Titans, and it's very, very good acquisition points. But I think there's quite a strict border between, you know, esports acquisition, esports free-to-plays, and then the gambling ones. And I think the gambling market today is so diverse. I mean, I was taking a walk just through the casino earlier, and if you look at what slot games have become, you know, simply, you know, it's like 15 buttons, more animations than you can dream of. I think many casinos, even in North America, they're still catching up with the level of technology I'm seeing over here, which is impressive because you're driving so much content to users. You want to attract them to your game, you want them to gamble, but then you want to keep them there with something special. It's not easy to do. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, so I won't be able to go into this because I wanted to give a couple of examples of raffles that we're using, but it is an interesting topic. I think closing words, there's a lot going to be coming out over the next year, especially with so many emerging markets. I know you guys are all leaders in this front, so I'm going to be watching your spaces. I thank you for your time. I thank you, the audience. Thank you very much. Let's give them a warm hand.
Thank you.
Woo!